if you...
You've lost me.
I have, right? So what I'm saying, actually, you see, I mean, it's a combination of both. I mean, here it is the natural instinct, and here is control. You are to combine the two in harmony.
In July 1973, Bruce Lee was finally winning. Hollywood wanted him. Audiences were obsessed with him. And Enter the Dragon was about to make him bigger than almost anyone expected. But behind the scenes, some people around Bruce Lee reportedly believed something about him had started changing. Not physically, psychologically. By that point, Bruce Lee had spent nearly 10 years trying to force Hollywood to take him seriously. But almost nobody talks about what success appeared to be doing to him once he finally got it. Because according to several people close to him, Bruce Lee was no longer behaving like someone simply happy to become famous. He wanted more. More control. More power over his movies. More control over how Asian men would be seen in Hollywood forever. And honestly, not everybody seemed comfortable with that. Then suddenly, on July 20th, 1973, Bruce Lee was dead, only 32 years old, just days before Enter the Dragon exploded globally. And decades later, people still argue about the same question. Was Bruce Lee becoming Hollywood's next superstar? Or was he becoming something the system itself didn't fully know how to handle anymore? Bruce Lee spent years trying to become a Hollywood star. But most people don't realize how often Hollywood reportedly pushed him to the side before 1970. That part of the story changes how you see everything later. Because when audiences look back now, Bruce Lee feels inevitable. Like success was always coming. It wasn't. In fact, throughout the 1960s, American television and film studios still struggled with the idea of an Asian leading man becoming dominant on screen. And Bruce Lee noticed it immediately, especially because he wasn't quiet about his ambitions. That's important. Bruce Lee didn't behave like someone grateful to simply be included. He acted like someone who already believed he should be leading the industry. And honestly, some people admire that confidence. Others thought it crossed into arrogance. That debate still exists online today. Even people who worked around Bruce Lee sometimes described him as intense, impatient, obsessive, difficult to slow down. But maybe that personality was exactly why he became impossible to ignore later. Because Bruce Lee didn't want acceptance. He wanted influence. And there's a difference between those two things. Bruce Lee became famous extremely fast. But almost nobody talks about how dangerous that speed of fame can become psychologically. Especially when someone spends years feeling underestimated first. Because once Bruce Lee returned to Hong Kong, everything changed almost overnight. The Big Boss exploded. Then Fist of Fury became even bigger. And suddenly, the actor Hollywood once hesitated to trust was becoming one of the biggest stars in Asia without them. That changed the power dynamic completely. And honestly, this is where some people believe Bruce Lee started becoming difficult for Hollywood to comfortably control. Because once someone becomes globally successful outside the system, they stop depending on the system emotionally. Bruce Lee reportedly started demanding script changes, better fight choreography, more control over filming, stronger Asian characters. Now, today, that sounds normal. But in the early 1970s, that was not normal at all, especially from someone Hollywood originally viewed as replaceable. And maybe that's why opinions around Bruce Lee became so divided privately. Some people saw vision, others saw ego. By the time Enter the Dragon started filming, Bruce Lee already understood this movie could change his life forever. But almost nobody talks about the pressure that realization probably created behind the scenes. Because according to several people around the production, Bruce Lee reportedly became increasingly perfectionistic during filming, repeating scenes constantly, correcting movements over and over, arguing over camera angles, barely relaxing. And years later, some people who rewatched footage from 1973 started noticing something uncomfortable. Bruce Lee looked incredible physically, but he also looked exhausted, almost restless, like someone pushing himself harder than normal people realistically could. Some fans think people overanalyze this now, Others believe the warning signs were obvious long before his death. That debate still divides audiences decades later. But one thing seems difficult to deny. Bruce Lee no longer looked like someone simply trying to become famous. He looked like someone trying to prove something much bigger, especially to Hollywood itself. Because if Enter the Dragon failed, many people believe Hollywood could have easily used that failure to justify never trusting another Asian male. Lead actor again. That's an enormous amount of pressure for one person to carry, especially someone already obsessed with perfection. By 1973, Bruce Lee no longer felt like a regular movie star. And honestly, that may have been the moment everything changed psychologically. Because Bruce Lee wasn't only becoming popular, he was becoming symbolic, especially to young men, especially to Asian audiences around the world. Discipline, masculinity, confidence, control. Bruce Lee represented things Hollywood rarely gave Asian male characters before. And once audiences emotionally attach themselves to a symbol like that, the celebrity becomes much harder to manage normally. That's why Bruce Lee still feels different from most action stars even today. Most actors feel entertaining. Bruce Lee felt dangerous, real, and maybe that's why people still argue about him emotionally decades later. Because debates around Bruce Lee aren't really about movies anymore. They're about power. Some people believe Bruce Lee changed Hollywood forever. Others think his influence has become exaggerated over time. But either way, very few celebrities from the 1970s still create arguments this emotional 50 years later. Then suddenly, everything stopped. July 20th, 1973. Bruce Lee was dead at only 32 years old. And psychologically, that changed his legacy forever. Because the world never saw Bruce Lee become old, never saw him become irrelevant, never saw him slowly fade away like most celebrities eventually do. Instead, he became frozen in time, young, intense, untouchable. And maybe that's the biggest reason his image still feels powerful now. Because audiences never emotionally processed Bruce Lee as ordinary, only legendary. Then Enter the Dragon exploded globally just days after his death. And suddenly, Bruce Lee became larger than cinema itself. He became myth. And honestly, that's where the arguments around him became impossible to separate from reality anymore. Because from that moment forward, people stopped debating only who Bruce Lee was. They started debating what he represented. And maybe that's the real reason Bruce Lee still feels different today. Not because he was the greatest fighter ever, not because of conspiracy theories, but because for a very brief moment in the early 1970s, Bruce Lee looked like someone capable of changing the entire direction of Hollywood itself. And depending on who you ask, that's either exactly what makes him legendary, or exactly why people believe the myth around him eventually became bigger than the